So today we are looking at an insanely aggressive chip strategy in FPL, which uses the bench boost, it uses the triple captain, and it uses the wildcard chips, all within the first 3 game weeks. Now before you click off and say there is absolutely no way I'm using all my chips that early on, are you absolutely mental? Well, hear me out for 2 seconds. As we know, the majority of the player base is struggling very hard to fit in Haaland and Salah into their team without making huge sacrifices. But obviously with both having fixtures against Ipswich right off the bat, it feels as though we're really going to need both of these guys to get off to a good start. So in this video I've put together a strategy which fits in both players, Haaland and Salah, while using all 3 chips at the beginning of the season and could put you off to a really effective start. Now as you can see, we have a game week 1 draft on the screen, and as for this game week and game week 1 we would be looking to use the bench boost chip. Now this comes with many benefits, one being is that there's not going to be as many double game weeks this season, as cup games are not going to be rescheduled to interfere with league games, which was a very popular thing in the last couple of seasons, really since COVID, and that's really where a lot of people have been using their bench boost chips. But this season it looks as though there's maybe only going to be maximum 1 or 2 double game weeks, if even that, towards the end of the season. So the bench boost looks really effective to just use as early as possible to get out of the way, but it doesn't really look like we're going to have too many double game weeks. The other benefit being that as it's game week 1, we are going to know pretty much who the starting 11s are going to be. Teams are not going to rotate, they're not going to have to rotate as it is the first game of the season, and we're not going to have European football to cause teams to rotate their teams either, so it makes things even more easier when trying to build a team, a full 15 players that are going to play. So as you can see with this draft on the screen, we do have Haaland and Salah of course, and we do have a very capable team of bench boosting with this bench essentially. So we've got Hudson-Odoi in there, we've got Gehi, and we also have Harwood-Bellis. Now I've put in Harwood-Bellis in there to afford some better players, but obviously as this is a bench boost, Harwood-Bellis isn't going to be as effective. So if you really wanted to, you can see a Doji up there in defence as well. You could always downgrade him to a 4.5 million defender, and then you can upgrade Harwood-Bellis to another 4.5 million defender. That way you're going to have a full 5-back of 4.5 million defenders that you can bench boost with. I will mention this throughout the video as well. If you don't want to go for this exact draft, that's totally okay. If there's 1 or 2 players you don't like, feel free to swap them over. This is just something I've put together as a potential bench boost for game week 1. Now as you'll be able to see on the screen now, we have all the fixtures for each of these players in game week 1, and again, as we're using the bench boost, we want to have every single player available in the starting 11, including our bench, and all of them having decent fixtures as well. Now you can see a lot of green fixtures on the screen, which of course is as good as it can get. Only 2 people with difficult fixtures, and that is going to be Haaland and it's going to be Harwood-Bellis. So again, if you don't want Harwood-Bellis, feel free to do some jigging about and going for a 4.5 million defender instead. Obviously with Haaland it doesn't really make a difference to what his fixture is going to be. He can obviously score in any game, and I believe he scored I think 2 goals against Chelsea in the away fixture in the last game as well last season, so it's not one that we really have to worry about too much. There's a lot of home games in there as well in terms of the green fixtures. Obviously Nottingham Forest we have tripled up on, we've got Sells, we've got Hudson-Odoi, and we have a 1-8 all with Bournemouth at home. We've also tripled up on Newcastle, who have Southampton at home, so that'll be Isak, Gordon and Burn, all with decent fixtures. We've got Garnacho in there and Martinez, again Fulham with a home fixture which is pretty nice. Salah is going to be our captain with the game against Ipswich as well, which is really the main reason that we are going to be wanting to start with him. Liverpool have some really nice fixtures off the bat, and this is definitely the main one, and one of the main reasons why we want to be starting with him and Haaland, because they make really good captains in game week 1 and game week 2. Now looking at game week 2, we are not using a transfer. Again, the main focus of this team is going to be able to use these chips so that we can build a lot of transfers in future game weeks when people are going to be using their wild cards in, say, game week 6, game week 7, game week 8. We're going to have a lot of built up transfers because we're preparing very nicely with these chips. Now in game week 2, we are going to be using the triple captain chip, of course. Now one of the main benefits of using this triple captain in game week 2 is, again, as we mentioned previously, there's not going to be as many double game weeks, so we're really just looking for the best single game week fixture. And on paper, you would probably say it's going to be Ipswich at home, and who's the best player to triple captain? It's going to be Erling Haaland. So even though it's very early on paper it is still the best fixture to give a triple captaincy to someone, and we're really going to be wanting Haaland. Now he is only 33% owned as well, so a lot of people aren't going to be starting with him off the bat, which makes this triple captain even more effective. Only 1 in 3 people in the game are going to have him, and you're going to be getting triple points rather than the double points that you would originally get from the captaincy. So this looks like it could be a huge move, a huge differential in game week 2, and could get you off to a monumental start. Again, we can look at the fixtures of each of the players, and to be honest, game week 2 actually looks like a really good time to bench boost as well if you wanted to, but again, we're really focusing on using that triple captain chip, so obviously 4 of these players are going to have to go on the bench, so those players have been greyed out. But again, all green fixtures all round. Every single player in this team has a good fixture in game week 2, so again, there's no real reason to be using those free transfers, which we can just stack up, as now we know using wildcard chips and free hit chips and stuff like that isn't going to reset our transfers, so we can roll them over to the weeks after. Now looking at our game week 3 team, this is where we would use the wildcard chip. Now, as we kind of have established, a team without Haaland looks like the best possible route, but obviously we want to be covering off that Ipswich fixture, which is why we're using our chips here. Now this wildcard team obviously doesn't have Haaland, but we are covering him off with Phil Foden, and again, the team you can make without Haaland is really strong. You look at that midfield, we've got Salah, Palmer and Foden. There's no way you're getting Palmer and Foden in a team if you're also trying to get Haaland and Salah. We've also managed to fit in triple Liverpool now with Alexander-Arnold, Salah and Gakpo, as it's very clear that they do have the easiest fixtures for the upcoming game weeks. So again, this wildcard is setting us up very nicely. The only downfall to this is the fact that we are wildcarding 3 Liverpool players into an away game against Manchester United, which always seems to be a bit of a hit and miss. That could either be a very difficult game for Liverpool or a very tough game, so we'll have to wait and see with that one. But again, we're able to fit in players like Cole Palmer, who again Chelsea also have really nice fixtures from this point on, who we would captain against Crystal Palace. Now City as well have pretty decent fixtures. We do really only have the Arsenal and Newcastle game. As you can see on the screen, we've basically got all of our players' fixtures here now. This is right up to game week 8, so you can see the amount of green fixtures that we've got on there. Even if you look at each of the players individually, it's a lot of really nice fixtures. And when you look at even the red fixtures, it's the players that really are fixture proof. You know, you're looking at Phil Foden with 2 red fixtures in there. He could easily score against Arsenal, he could easily score against Newcastle. Again, with like Vardiol, who we've benched against Arsenal, he could also easily play against Newcastle and do quite well. So this is a really nicely set up team right up to game week 8. And again, when you're actually looking at the game weeks individually, obviously we have greyed out the players who would be benched. There's so many green fixtures. You're looking at game week 4, again all green fixtures. You're looking at game week 5, all green fixtures apart from Foden and Eze, who have some difficult ones. But again, you're really nicely set up for the upcoming game weeks all the way up to about game week 8. And again, a lot of people do look to be using their wild cards in game week 6, game week 7, game week 8. And at that point, we're going to have stacked up 3 or 4 transfers from rolling in game week 4 or 5, game week 2 and stuff like that as well. So we're going to have a lot of transfers stacked up that if you wanted to at least match people on a wild card, you're going to be able to use 4 or 5 transfers and change half your team. The main one would be obviously Arsenal having good fixtures from game week 6 onwards. Again, like I said, you can easily bring in even a double or triple up from them with your transfers that you have saved up, because obviously this team doesn't have any Arsenal players. You could easily bring in someone like Kai Havertz. You could maybe swap Palmer over to Saka, for example, and then bring in a defender as well. But that is it for this chip strategy video. If you enjoyed it, make sure to leave a like. It's definitely something I'm going to be considering doing. Having a very aggressive strategy hasn't been on my mind in previous seasons, but with the lack of double game weeks this week, I definitely could be tempted to use those 3 chips in the first 3 weeks. Of course, you don't actually have to use the bench boost in game week 1 either. I just think it could be a good addition to get you off to the best start possible, but it isn't absolutely needed. The main thing is trying to use that triple captain on Haaland, which could have humongous benefits. Then obviously wildcarding him out in game week 3 looks quite good. So let me know what you think down in the comments. Let me know if you would make any changes to it, and let me know what your chip strategy is that you currently have planned. So leave a like if you enjoyed, make sure to subscribe, and I'll see you all in the next one.